Hey guys, this is National Master Kevin Yang back at it with another video. So, of course, this is one of those parts that I am playing against a chess club member, and in this case, it's JGarrison25. No surprise, another YouTube channel about my games with him. So let's begin. So this time around, I said, okay, I gotta change something up. Last time I played the Queen's Gambit declined, right? So what do I do this time? This time I play what is called a Gruenfeld defense, or some people call it the Grunfold, because they can't pronounce, why the U has two dots over it, or something very weird, but okay. So after knight c3, I play d5. Now, black has two options here. Black can accept the fate that after e4, castles, right? Knight f3, d6. This is what is called a King's Indian defense. So after bishop e2, e5, and after d5, well, we've entered the main line of, we've entered a main line of the King's Indian. So in the King's Indian, white goes Hail Mary on the right side. Black is going to go Hail Mary on the left side. Just go over there. We go over here, and eventually some person wins. Sometimes it's a draw. Sometimes it's a very explosive game. So, let us continue. So, I decided, okay, I'm going to avoid that. I'm going to do something different. So this is another kind of plan. So I'm going to play d5, and the goal here is that after takes, knight takes, the goal is to bring the bishop out and pressure this pawn. Now, that's always been the goal of the Grunfeld. Now, the main line goes e4, knight takes, pawn takes, bishop g7, knight f3, just keeping the center. Black attacks the center, and after a move, like after bishop e3, right, knight c6 might be possible, bishop g4 might be possible. So let's say I play queen a5, right, queen d2, bishop g4. You can see that what black is doing is bring the knight out, bring the rook out, piling up on this pawn, because that's what's important. If the pawn moves here, the bishop takes here and pins the queen. So we can't do that. The pawn has just got to remain here. So maybe white could play something like rook b1 attacking the pawn. Black could play something like knight here or knight here. Try to look towards the center. So let's get back into the game, but mainly black's goal as an overview to the Grunfeld is to pressure the center. So let's get back to it. After knight takes d5, queen takes d5, knight f3 happens, completely fine, developing, getting the pawn out, bishop g7, e3, my castle. This is all standard, and now I'm showing what I mentioned before, attacking the center, bringing the knight out. It's all standard. Castles, knight c6, takes, queen takes, and now we can see the power of this bishop, right? This bishop is now much better than this bishop. The bishop is left to defend this pawn, and I know that this bishop does not want to do that. So that's why this bishop is just so powerful sometimes. The Grunfeld bishop, people like to neutralize it. Some people say, it's sometimes really powerful in terms of creating these skewers, these pins, these threats. So bishops are a powerful piece. So after bishop d2, I contemplated whether it was worth it taking here. And of course, I thought, okay, first I have to weigh the good and the bad. The good is that when we take here, we threaten the rook as well. Now, when we don't, when we don't take there, what else can we do, right? So you have to go through this sequence of events where you think, okay, are there any drawbacks to making a certain move? And if there are, then is there a better move? Like, for example, you could consider the move e5 in this position, threatening to play e4. However, you're going to have to think about, what if he just brings his rook out and his bishop out? Is it good for me? Will I be making progress? And here I decided, maybe it's not, maybe I don't have to take the pawn, right? Maybe I can do something else. And I played rook d8. Now this was simply just to put pressure on the bishop and the queen. And after rook b1 trying to defend the pawn, little bit of a mistake, not easy to see, but I got bishop f5. Attacking, completely dominating. But after b4, very interesting move. Now black has to consider, okay, where do I go? Because you have to consider all these options, right? But how do you know which one's better? And I'd like to quote one of my coaches on this. Wonderful coach, Grandmaster Kaidanov. So, of course, I am a long thinker. Sometimes I get in time pressure a lot. It might not show, but I do get in time pressure. And he wrote that when you're debating between two moves, if to you they have similar consequences, they offer the same benefits, then just pick one, right? Down the road, you're going to meet a bunch of strawberries, but not all of them are going to be different from one another. They might be somewhat similar. So just pick one, right? It's like picking a paper out of a hat, picking something out of a hat. They're going to be similar in some way. But if there is a difference, then justify that difference and make the move. So I played queen d6. Now you might think, why not queen d5? It looks better. Well, in total honesty, I felt they were the same, so I went with queen d6. And after rook c1, I once again had to stop and consider. Do I put more pressure on this guy? Do I go take the free pawn? Do I play this bishop b2, go for the rook maybe? And I said, let's go for the rook, looks cool. And after rook c4, which was a mistake, not easy to see, I didn't see it until I got to the move. So sometimes the computer says, oh, this thing is a mistake. But computers are always overreacting. You gotta always remember that. Computers are not humans. We are the true judgment deciders of certain moves. So it's not about what the computer thinks. It's about what you think. What your gut tells you to do is usually what's best. So after knight e5, knight takes e5. Notice that after knight takes, the bishop is hanging, but the knight is also hanging. So by playing knight e5, I am attacking the guy who's defending this bishop a second time. Right? As you can tell, there are two defenders, but there are two attackers. Right? So if I eliminate this guy with check, I can take him for free. That's the goal here. But after knight takes e5, he took one of my pieces, and I have to think to myself, okay, is Jay Garrison's knight more valuable or is the bishop more valuable? And it's a really hard decision to make here, but I decide let's take the knight. The reason? Look at that pawn, right? It's juicy. It's there, sitting there. And I decide let's go for it. So he plays bishop c3. What I thought was the best move, because it releases you from the pin and it also attacks this very interesting piece. It's sort of like the queen is defending it, but the queen is also being attacked, right? So it's sort of like fire meets fire. So I play bishop takes h2 with check, king moves, and I play queen e6. Now, of course, some of you are wondering, why don't I just take, right? Well, that is the easy answer right there. White has 5 pawns, I have 6 pawns. The material is relatively even. I'm just up a pawn. I'm going to convert this. Yes, in a real game, I would. But I had a feeling that by opening this file up, maybe my queen could transfer over there and start delivering some blows. So I did. Played queen e6. Might have not been the most accurate, but it was a try for attack. So after rook d4, simply attacking the rook twice, so I gotta guard it now, bishop c7. And after bishop g4, somewhat interesting, but once again, white wants to trade pieces. Do I say yes to it? The answer is, well, partially. I decide to give up the bishop. I say it's okay, because in return, I get this open file, and that's a good thing for me. So after queen a1, looking at this diagonal, perfectly fine. I think it's a very, very interesting idea. However, it's very hard to spot that black has maybe a devastating blow this way. And it might look like, okay, maybe we're going to get there just in time, right? So the idea here is after queen a1, h5, bishop h8, you want black to fall for it and checkmate, right? This is the goal of white. So, but the problem here is that black's attack is so much faster. Comes with a check, comes with a checkmate. There's no check here yet, so I get to spare this tempo. And what I mean by tempo is I get a check, and a check forces the king to move. Basically a tempo. Or you just threaten a piece, it's also a tempo. But after g3, this is a puzzle-like finish. Now there are multiple ways to finish, but okay, let's look at this. Queen f3, king g1, and rook d5. The goal is rook h5, rook h1. It's very, what do you call it? Squarish, right? Here's another way to finish, and here's how I finished. Queen h3. And just make it all forcing. King g1, bishop takes g3. The goal is queen h2 checkmate with the bishop. So I sacrifice the bishop, takes back, queen takes, king h1, rook d5, threatening checkmate, bishop e5, rook takes, and the queen has to be given up. So that is the game. I hope you did learn something there. Really, it was just all about pressuring the center, and this game came down to pressure and my decision making. So hopefully you did learn and have fun.